So welcome, and thank you very much for joining us. This is going to be, as Vitaly said, this is going to be a slightly different talk because we are not going to focus on any specific tool or practice or approach or whatever. We would like to bring you, let's say, a big picture, right, on the way we are working together as a designer, as a developer, as a content people, as a product people, whatever, to find, let's say, a better way. We called this talk with this pretentious title.
So pretentious.
Yeah. But what we would like to bring you, it's, let's say, a different idea. Let's say something that could give us the opportunity to ask ourselves questions and reflect a little bit the way we are designing and producing things.
Yeah. And what a better way to start that with a story. Let's imagine it's 2007, so we are traveling back in time, and okay, what we need to know about 2007? Well, people were really crazy about flash mobs. There were all these pillow fight thingy around, and emoji were not really a thing yet, and most importantly, I would say, Taylor Swift was still a country singer. I mean, look at those boots over there. That's really something. And Matteo and I just met 1 year before, and we're starting to collaborate together, working on web stuff. We were both really passionate about it, and we like it. So we said, let's try. So, like everybody else at the time, we were working with this huge PSD who was around in 2007, who was doing web stuff in 2007. Nice. I feel like 60%, maybe. But that's good. So you're all going to remember this kind of stuff, like huge PSD with its mockups, different variation, textures. Were really a thing. And yeah, I know. The web was different. And we have, I know. And we are beautiful typography example, Flash. Whoever did a website in Flash? I didn't. But I think if you working on web stuff in 2007, you're going to remember this. Oh.
No.
Dum. That's the sound of Photoshop crashing 3, 4, 5 times a day, because we're just handling those big files. It was really hard, I would say, but I think we did something, right?
Yeah, exactly. We found our way through trial, errors. We made a lot of mistakes, but we started from something that we went really passionate about. We fell in love with the web, with the possibilities that the web was opening to us, and we found our way, slowly, learning a lot of things, doing a lot of mistakes, as I said. But we have to remember that the web in 2007, so 10 years ago, was something slightly different from the thing that we have today. So first of all, was something that we consumed in those boxes that we called PC, like computers, right? So there was no mobile web, because the iPhone was actually presented in 2007. So there was no responsive web design, and probably our everyday problem was something like finding an hacky way to apply a style that was actually consistent between all the browsers. That, by the way, they were not so advanced, right, like the one we can have today.
Yeah. That's true. And as Matteo said, we made a lot of mistakes, but we kind of learn a lot on the way too. So with time, we start to learn how to think in a modular way. So instead of building this huge PSD, divided the layout in modules and focusing more in that direction. And we also kind of start to separate the style from the presentation layer, and we were going to client, and just instead of jumping into the design right away, we're doing workshop and preparing, posters for just getting the feeling of what that was the purpose of that product at the time. So I say that right now we can be like around 2011 in this time traveling. And what was really important for us, like we were going to conferences like this one, and we're still going, by the way, and we're like discovering new way to communicate design every day, and we're like super excited. We felt like pioneers. We felt like Neil Armstrong, like walking on the moon for the first time, and it was so beautiful, and we were like so passionate about it. But then, you know, life is never as you expected. And we realized that for bringing our passion to the next level, we had to make some changes. So we closed our shop in Rome, and we moved out from Italy, and we moved to Berlin, and we separated our career. So we stopped to work together, and we went to different places. Hi, everyone. My name is Emanuela Damiani. And as Vitaly said before, I'm a UX designer for Mozilla, in particular working for Firefox. And what I really like about being a UX designer, what really changed for me is that before I was working for a client, and now I'm actually working for a product, which is kind of different and gave me the possibility, the opportunity to see both sides.
And yeah, this is me. My name is Matteo. I'm really passionate about modern art, as you see, and I'm a senior consultant at this company called ThoughtWorks, where normally I have to work. Well, I like to work with big companies, let's say enterprise level, where I'm trying to help design people and people that works around product to find a better way to communicate each other and to make something that's more valuable for their customers and, you know, trying to optimize the way they are designing and producing things. So, as you said, a lot of things happened in the last 10 years. And together with trends and fashions and other stuff, also the way that we think about the web, about this digital matter, is actually changed a lot. Let's say we went through a sort of evolution, where at the beginning we started from something that was really close to reality. So if we look back in 2007, when the iPhone was coming out for the first time, everything looked like physical stuff. We had this word, I don't know if many of you remember, the skeuomorphism. So mimicking things that existed in real life, like, I don't know, woods or newspapers. You know, newspaper website looked exactly like a newspaper, a physical one. And there was this match also between materials, a lot of textures that was actually remembering real materials and real things that we find in the real world. But together with this, also our mindset approaching the production system, let's say the way we was putting together things and producing digital products, was something that remembered very closely to the way we are producing physical objects, physical stuff. So we see this, that was actually a very linear process, right? So something that starts with the framing the problem, so trying to understand what actually is the thing that we need to design, then trying to ideate a solution, making a specification, like communicating the thing that we need to build to someone else, and this is something that comes from the tradition of design, right? Something that comes from the things that we learned as industrial designers. But you see here, well, probably you don't see, but well, there is a separation between the phases that are happening on the left side and the things that happen on the right side. It means that at a certain point, when we are doing this kind of workflow, we need to stop to design, and then we need to start producing things, and then distributing it. And this is the way we are making chairs, couches, cars, everything. We need to stop the design, and then starting with the production and the distribution. Many people are still talking, when they are talking about design, the software, and producing things, using this metaphor. It's like a house. It's like a building, right? So first of all, we need to set up the design of the building. Then we need to prepare the foundation. And then other people, builders, will come, and they will start doing another thing. And then another group of people come over, and so on and so on. And different steps, different things, different people, different professions. But this way of thinking is actually forgetting a very important aspect of software. The fact that it's soft. It means that even if sometimes we are thinking about those big legacy products, changing things in software is actually quite easy than changing things on physical stuff. If we are going to manufacture 10,000 pieces and at a certain point we are realizing that something is wrong, well, we are screwed.
Yeah, we're in trouble.
Yeah, we are definitely in trouble. But if we realize that something went wrong when we start thinking about a digital product, well, we can fix it without, well, ideally, with not so much prayer, with not so much effort, let's say. You probably recognize this, right? When somebody is messing up with something on the physical world, well, they have to go through recall campaigns, and it's going to be bloody expensive for them because it's actually producing a huge impact when there's something goes wrong in the physical world. But I mean, when we are doing mistakes, well, we are lucky enough to work, to have a job where if we are doing some kind of mistakes, well, we can release a patch, and ideally, we can fix things, let's say, in hours. Another aspect that makes software very different from producing objects and from buildings is the fact that the place where software is accessible, so where the people the needs for software and people that produce software, the market, is something very different from the physical object market. Because it means that we can reach people all around the world instantly, and we are exposed to a lot of changes. You heard probably this word like disruption, which means that the technology of today will become
obsolete.
Obsolete, thank you. Will become obsolete in a couple of months. Everything goes so fast, which that makes predicting things very hard.
Yeah, and that's why our capacity of change and adjust, it should be our main skill here. And as a creative digital product, we should be redirected through flexibility and resilience. We should be able, to just change our mind and rethink how we create digital products and services is actually going in this direction. And instead of making software, as we currently do with hardware, so with the linear process that we showed before, we should rethink it, because, we're not like a feature factory in here. So, how many of you are familiar with the infamous water scrum fall process? Let's see how it works. So, another story here. We have marketing and sales that just have a great idea for a new feature or for a new product. They go to these mythological people called the stakeholders. They have the treasure, they have all the money, and they can take all the decision. And they discuss, maybe they negotiate something on the way until the stakeholders call the most talented project manager that they have, like, we need to deliver this in 2 weeks. Like, okay, wow. That's a lot of pressure, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah,
we'll see. Yeah. So the project manager called the designers, like, okay, designer, let's do something. And it's 2017 now, so we're definitely going to have some user research, maybe. Or, we don't have enough time, so we need to cut something. We do one test, and it's enough. Until, again, we have the specs, or the good old mockups, maybe. And we deliver that to the developer team that are like, okay, let's make it. And they're like there, they're coding, they have Q&A in their face, until, ta-da! The final product is ready to meet the users. Great, right?
Yeah, great, isn't it? But yeah, many of you already got the paradox here, right? We are building something that is soft, that is actually something that we could change, but it's very hard to go, let's say, right to left. This flow goes in one direction. There is no way. It's very hard to negotiate things more we are going through the process. And this is a pity, because more time we are spending building something, more we know about the people that is going to use that, the more we know about the possibility that we could have, and so on. So we could explain this paradox trying to measure the cost per change. For example, how many of you heard this case where, I don't know, there is a developer that at a certain point raise her hand and realize that something, well, is definitely not possible. Or there is an edge case that the design is actually not covering. Well, at this point, you need to get back to the designer team and say, hey, wait, we need to fix this. And they have to stop what they are working at the moment and jump to the old problem, trying to fix, trying to make probably something like a compromise, let's say,
Yeah,
right?
as
And
fast as possible.
as fast as possible, good one. Yeah, this is cost a lot of time. But what if we are going to discover something new when the product hits the users? Well, it's an exponential cost here. When something is delivered to the people and people start using it, going back, well, it's bloodily expensive, and it's very hard to negotiate with the boss saying, like, we know what, we delivered this thing, and people doesn't like it. Right?
Yeah, and that's because a lot of people think that design is the act of predict the future user needs. Well, actually, it's something different. Right now, designers put a lot of effort before the launch of the product, before the launch of the feature, and they cannot forget that actually the user are meeting the product and that design way back on the line. So I know maybe you're thinking, hey, we have user research, right? What about user research? It's true, but sometimes it's not so easy, especially if you have a tight deadline. And most importantly, until the user met your product, they don't know, because they need to leave the product in their personal environment, not in a lab, and not with a reward.
True that. I heard, for example, many people that says like, oh, well, I don't have time I have to take a decision if build something like A or B, and I don't have time to run a proper analysis because we need to go fast, and I don't know what is the right decision. Well, I would say that decisions are not so important if we are able to make mistakes, learn, and run this process very quickly, so it will cost very small price, let's say. So if we are able to make something, learn from it, whatever it is, and revert to something that is more valuable and avoid us making disasters, well, this is more important than taking the right decision at the beginning. And that's why we see that for many, designers is becoming something that goes, let's say, in small steps, trying something out, see how people react, and then move forward. And this is the way, for example, that many people is trying to implement in their process instead of going for big redesign. So instead of redesigning completely a platform, they try something out and see how people react. And that's, let's say, we can call it, that's why many people start talking about this thing that is called Lean UX. So applying the Lean principles of thinking, making, and check the effect, the impact of something in their own day-to-day design process.
Yeah.
Is that? Oh, yeah, exactly. And
I mean,
sorry.
we can make hypotheses, right?
Yes, because it's all about the language. I mean, everything starts with language. So shifting the language from doing things, communicating things in form of requirements, like we need to do this, to something that is more flexible and give us the possibility to test. Like this one. This one comes straight from a project where we are actually starting thinking about a new feature or changing or redesigning a page with a question in mind, with an hypothesis. That it gives us the possibility also to say, well, we are not sure that this is going to work, so be ready. Because if something goes bad, well, we need to fix it quickly.
Yeah, and I think we know right now that it's not so hard. Take a team together for 5 days, do activity for each day, or sometimes less, because, you know, time, money. We have a new feature to ship. And so running experiment, I think, is something that's becoming more and more common in the way that we are currently doing software. But I would like to say that running experiment is quite easy. What became really hard and complex is when we need to run experiment at scale. So instead of go and ship and do one experiment at a time, do it simultaneously. So let's take this example. We want to run an experiment. We have this, we call it experiment A, and we want to ship in the product 3 different layout variation for making a new landing page, right? So we're going to have 3 different code for this landing page. At the same time, we also want to ship another experiment with other 3 different layouts. The means that we are going to have a lot of differentiation. And we call this like design generation. So we want to test as much as possible, and then we want to compare to those design one against another and promote the one that perform better according to the hypothesis that we set before, like a real success metric. The one that do not perform so well, we're just going to cut it, or maybe if you're like really attached and we see there is something good, iterating on it until we can say that we have a clear winner or not, and we like reiterate again until we have something that satisfies the metric that we set.
Yeah, it seems a very complex thing, isn't it?
It is.
Well, and when we are talking about complexity, one thing that comes to my mind is how the people that deal with software start thinking about how to govern complexity. And one of the keywords, one of the, let's say, the experience that comes to my mind is definitely all the things orbiting around the idea of agile software development. Who knows about agile? Well, a lot of people. Yeah, but at the core of that, let's remember that agile started with a group of developers that really liked ski. So they went to this cottage, to this chalet on the mountains of Utah, and they had to find a solution about a real, let's say, painful problem. That was like people coming to you when you started a project having new requirements. How many of you have been in this situation when you started building something and everything was running very, very smoothly, and sometimes some people says, well, we need to change this and that. I've been there. And for this reason, they start to say, well, you know what? We need to start from the assumption that we cannot change this, that we cannot prevent people having new needs. We cannot prevent people having new ideas and saying, oh, stop, well, we are not going to accept this change. We need to start from the idea that we could not control the environment around us. And late changes, well, are good. We are going to welcome those things because it gives us the opportunity to deliver more value. And instead of making very elaborate plans, trying to predict the future, we would like more to inspect and adapt, see how the world reacts, and then, steer our project accordingly. Because, going back, sorry. Well, but Agile is actually something that started in the early 2000s. And I don't know if you were around on those years, but software at time was something even more different from what we had in 2007. So to give you an idea, people was coding software and then burning it into CD-ROMs or floppy disk and then ship it, like in an envelope. And this was very different from the way we're making software today. Because right now, we are able to create something and distributing it instantly. And this goes to the direction of having this new mindset, we could say. People start talking about this idea of DevOps. And to give you an idea about DevOps, is one of the most important pieces of modern software architecture, something that makes possible run, I'd say, a global-wide social network, as well as buffer-free video streams that you could find online. And for many, when we are talking about DevOps, we are talking about developers' operations. Well, it's not. We are not talking about how few operations you need to do to put the code online. And we are not going to talk about how many operational engineers you need to run the business. We are more talking about having a team that, first of all, is in charge to run a specific part of the domain, they say, the business, from the initial point to the very end. Why this is important? Because they need to develop a sense of familiarity. They need to become very close to the users, to the customers of their service, because they have to develop this sense of feeling what's going on. And this is important because it's the same thing that we have, for example, with our bicycles or cars. When we are driving a car and it's actually our own car, we feel when something is wrong, right? So we have this, we don't know, but we know that we need to go to the garage and have a check. Well, it's the same thing. People need to develop this feeling about what's going on their products. And, well, how they do it is basically setting up feedback, setting up mechanism so they can observe how users are actually interacting with the product. And that's why, for example, many times you see people that runs a system, like they are able to understand if the national team is playing somewhere, or if the team is winning or losing, because they see metrics. They constantly have this window on the user's perspective. And you see that through something that looks really mathematical and, made by numbers, well, they are actually starting creating feedbacks. And for many, those feedbacks are functional to measure the real effectiveness of their work. So people on the operation space used to measure their quality, used to measure how good they were, measuring the time between failures. So we failed today, we failed in 1 month. We are pretty good because we have 1 month and we are developing software and nothing is broken. But instead of that, people start thinking in a different way, start thinking about the mean time between recovery. And this is a huge shift, because it means that we can do a sort of quality test directly on production. We can ship it without thinking that the thing we are doing is perfect, because we are able to observe the impact and revert it quickly if something is wrong, or shipping a patch very, very fast. Well, doesn't work for every industry. Well, I hope people doing software for airplanes, they will not do that.
Don't.
But it's actually a very important tool for many that works with digital products. And you see that what those people are doing with DevOps is not just pushing software out, but creating feedback loops, creating a sort of understanding on what's happening outside, or how the users are impacting, are actually getting what they're building. And extending this idea, this is a very fascinating idea, right? Because it shifts completely our paradigm. Instead of thinking about what would be the future, where we say, well, let's do something and let's observe it. And if we start to apply those principles into design, we can start talking about design ops, which is an effort, let's say, it's a way of thinking design slightly different from just planning, but more about creating a constant and a continuous conversation with users, that we are pushing out something, people respond some way, and we are going to read their response, and we are going to push something out again, and so on and so on. And instead of having these big plans and pushing those things out and then jump to another project, we're going to have this two-way conversation, let's say a bridge between creators and users that constantly interacting. They're looking at each other. Well, many people say, well, yes, that's a great idea, isn't it? Because we are talking about designing things, push things out, and see how people react. But yeah, this is the most expensive way how to measure an idea, how to evaluate things. Yes, that's definitely right. If you are still applying, let's say, a process that is born that was engineered at the origin to produce physical things. If we are keeping our process as we looked at before, definitely this is the most expensive way of testing ideas. But instead, if you are going to move out from this mindset, and if we are going to think about reducing the efforts necessary to produce something and put those things out in front of our users and maximize the information that we can get back from that, well, things start to change, right?
Yeah, like a lot of people wrote articles about, oh, artificial intelligence and machine learning, they're going to take all our design jobs, But I don't think so. I think actually those concepts, they're going to help us. Because if we can put some automation behind this is going to make this process way less expensive. But I mean, those things are relatively close, but kind of still in the future. There is still something that we can do right now. So starting with automation idea, that's actually that is required by running an experiment, and also a new way to organize our company, so a reorg. And what about this? So we're talking about automation. How can we do automation? We actually already have an example today about how to make design decision, right? That make the right choice, the easiest choice. So, design system. Design system is a way to automate design decision. So considering that design system are documents where we have all the design decisions already taken by a team documented, it's going to make our process really easy. And I mean, we can argue that a lot of people say, oh, yeah, design system, therefore consistency. I think we can discuss about that. But I really think that design systems are important are for creating several options and really helps the user to get in touch with our design idea as soon as possible. So giving to designer and developer and product manager tools, they're able to generate faster and to test faster their assumption. And another tool that we have, once that we have design system, are design tokens. Design tokens are basically a way to abstract in code your design decision as minimal as possible so that no matter who is going to use it, it's going to have in a format that are like flexible will. A common example is with color. You can have all your color variables somewhere, and then you have, again, the scripts, this automation, that generate different SAS variable if your front end is written in SAS, or if somebody prefers to use CSS variables, here it is. What about designer? They don't do code. They don't need design tokens. Wrong, because we can still export sketch palette or import in Adobe if you're still using Photoshop. So there are different ways that you can start, and you can start to automate your design decision. And why we believe it's really important is because it will help people to be more effective, to not spend time to reinvent the wheel over and over, instead of redesign the buttons, instead of rethink the overstay, rethink the behavior. You already have those decisions. Take it, try, test it, and if they're wrong, go back, discuss it with your team and with the rest of the people around.
Definitely. I mean, and if you're looking for a reason why you need to invest time building tools like that, like a design system, well, that's the answer. That the tools like that gives the possibility to ship code faster, to produce things faster, and have this kind of relationship with the user that goes in the direction of more fluidity. That with a design system, we are basically able to validate our ideas faster and start learning in a faster way. You have plenty of stories, right? Recently, yeah, there was this.
So one developer actually for the dev tools of Firefox was so excited. It's like, oh, that's great. I just shipped the new photon color, like our code name for the redesign. If you're curious, just download Nightly and you can see. Like, it was so easier and faster for us. Go there, take the tokens, and just find all the variables in their document. And this is something that I observe every day, at least at my job at Mozilla, and it's really excited. And the way that we can actually push code and receive feedback from our early adopter is something that is priceless.
Yes, and we see also how the design job is shifting to something that is more going on the direction of enabling others to take design decision. Because they are already taking a lot of decisions that are impacting the user experience. Think about people writing content, or people writing, or people working in the project management, or of course, developers. They are already taking a lot of decisions and helping them automating the, let's say, trivial task that they could find in the process of creating design artifacts. Well, that's great. That's the real essence of let's say, a new way of looking at design.
Yeah, design, redesign it.
Oh. Well, but it's basically shifting to the idea of producing things that are indicating exactly the thing that you need to do in order to match user needs, like maps, to produce compasses. So people can orient themselves through problems and they could find their own solutions for their precise problem that they are facing. And it's basically this idea of creating a design infrastructure. So things can flow faster and easier, and we are not going to commit for a lot of efforts, a lot of time to do something that at the end is not fulfilling the original user needs. But it's not just pushing things out. This is a very important point, because we, as a designers, as people working, creating digital stuff, we should be also in charge of designing the way people will communicate back their information. We said before, it's a two-way conversation. So it's not just producing things that goes out, like a new interface, a new contact form, a new login form, but it's also thinking about how we can collect information. So what are the metrics? What are the analytics tools that we are going to use? If we need feedback, what kind of feedback are we going to ask? It's a rating tool, it's a question, it's a feedback form, whatever. But this is a very important point. It's a conversation, it's a loop. And we can't imagine this kind of processes, this kind of tools, this kind of things happening in a company without rethinking the way how people work together, the way how the company is organized. Yep. And we should start from the very beginning. Why we are working in companies? Why we are creating companies? Why we are organizing the work, the efforts of many to produce a single product, a single service? Well, the only answer I know that makes sense. I mean, people say money. But I don't care about money. I think that we are making things because we want to delight our users. We want to ship something that makes the difference for them and basically allows them to make a better version of themselves. That's a great thing, because it means that we have a straight direction. It means that we are collaborating. It's not about fulfilling the egos of bosses, directors, or the CEO. We are building things to fulfill the original promise that we are going to deliver to the people, to the users. And in order to match this goal, the best way we know is creating small product teams. Products, as we said before, people that will work very closely to their users, establishing this close relationship where they actually start having more knowledge and information and developing things. Well, they are definitely cross-functional because they are responsible for creating value from the beginning to the end. So you need people that will be expert about everything that is necessary to build. No external dependencies. Everything should be made inside, so we don't have to wait for other people and bottlenecks and so on. Those people will become domain experts. And of course, I mean, we may include a designer or we may not. Depends a lot from the context, depends what we are building. And since those people are basically working on this constant iteration with the users, they are developing things because this is the best way we know to get closer to user. It's approximation. We are pushing something out, see how close we were from the original expectation, from the original, how close we were to deliver the value, and then adjust things accordingly. And since those people, I mean, they're working in this very, let's say, unpredictable space, well, they need a very clear purpose. They need a vision. They need something that orients. They can actually give the direction to them. But at the same time, they are living in the space where they are constantly influencing the global strategy, saying like, hey, we should go to this direction, but we discovered that there are many things that gives us the possibility to look for values in adjacent places, in other places. And so you see, it's a relationship. It's another feedback loop. And if you look at the big picture, if you step back, we see that they are living in a space where different teams are not independent, but definitely autonomous. And interdependent. So we can imagine a team that is in charge of designing the infrastructure they are in charge of developing the design infrastructure that lives in a close relationship with their clients. In this case, their clients are product teams. So product teams are able to fulfill this big loop because they have tools that comes from another team, and they will consume them like an API. They will take those tools if they need it, and at the same time, people on the top right, people that are producing those tools, will observe the adoption of things. So if we did something like, a grid, or a module, a card, and nobody's using it, well, they're going to remove it. If they are going to capture new needs, because they have ways of reading how people are behaving with the tool, with the design infrastructure, well, they're going to adjust. And talking about the design infrastructure theme, this is something kind of new, because normally we are organizing people, we are creating those, let's say, product teams, and that's fine. We say, okay, yes, do whatever you want. I mean, you're going to be responsible for orders, or for, I don't know, professional buyers. That's fine, but without a sustain, without an infrastructure, without a sort of framework behind, those people will spend a lot of time creating those things. So creating a team that is dedicated to provide a design infrastructure is a very important thing here. And who are those people? We said before, they are cross-functional, so it means that we are going to include designers, as well as developers, as well, why not, data analysts, people that are able to create and read and deal with numbers. Of course, they are going to provide the infrastructure, observe how they work, and so on. And more we are going through the organization of, our new organization of a design-driven company, more we see that it's not about the technology. That it's not about, let's say, a limitation that comes from computers, from networks, and so on. It comes from humans, basically, because we are going to create a network of humans, of communication, and this is something very hard. This quote comes from a book from Joichi Ito, which was, I think, the MIT lab director.
Biology.
Yeah, he's actually talking about biology, about synthetic biology. And it gives us the opportunity to reflect that governing those processes, well, it's very, very hard. And that's why we need to put extra efforts to understand what is the best way to govern, what is the best governance that we can apply, that could work in our space. So how day-to-day design operation works, how decisions are taken in a specific place or for responding for a specific need, how let's say, optimizing for a specific case could work or could generate opportunities for other teams in other places and so on. That's a great thing. I mean, it's a big, big problem. And, well, you know what? We don't have a magic wand. We don't have a secret recipe that could say, like, let's start from somewhere, let's apply those steps, one after the other. When if I'm a consultant, if somebody comes to you saying, I have a perfect recipe to set up an organization like that, don't trust them. Well, don't trust them. It's something that we need to develop by ourselves, even if, because it's a moving target. It's not something that we can capture once forever. It's something that is developing. It takes time.
Yeah, and that's why we would like to invite you all to start mapping your process. No matter who you are in your organization, go talk with the rest of your team or other teams and put it in front of a wall. If you're going to print something, recycle, because it's important. And just put your process on paper and see, and start to asking those questions. Are you designed for learning? How is your ability to run an experiment, one next to another? How is your possibility to enable others, hard designer, like working all together, and it's just like, you know, the little realm, and they're doing everything and just pushing out? Or there is some kind of conversation. How many times a suggestion coming from a product manager or developer is actually taken in consideration in your process? And most importantly, connect design, and I mean like design, to the end user. Having these continuous feedback loops, the continuous conversation that is happening when the product hits the user. As soon as you put your product in the user's hands, you start receiving the best answer ever.
Sure. And that's pretty much our idea of design ops. We are here also to hear your voice, your feedback, what you think, how those things could be applied in your cases, and if you see something that resonates with you. I think that we'll be around today and tomorrow and also tonight for the party. And if you want to approach us, ask questions, say something, we will be definitely open to hear your point of views around that and your experiences, your stories, and so on.
Thank you.
All right. Oh, that's nice. So would you like to join me for a little conversation?
Oh, wow.
I think we'll fit in here.
Yeah?
That's intriguing.
Okay.
I have questions.
Okay.
Okay. So we have a couple of questions, actually. What I'm wondering, so the idea of design ops, which is kind of like the design perspective on DevOps, it's very interesting, but it adds a lot of unpredictability, right? And it also requires experimentation. Now, from my experience, especially when it comes to design, very often predictability is something that you really want to keep, to have. You want to know that you're going to spend this amount of money on design, and very often, if it's a product, of course it's going to be continuous. If it's a website that you want to build and then maintain maybe once a month, you want to have a fixed sum when you know exactly what's going to happen, and you don't want to kind of release an unfinished version, right? So the question that actually came up quite a lot as well is, how do you manage that? Can you really just put out a half-finished product and hope for the best? Where does this fit, like the minimal viable product, fit in this paradigm?
Okay, thank you. Well, yeah, that's definitely a very important question, because we are actually thinking about how much time we need to spend on something before declaring ready to be shown outside, right? Well, that's a very interesting thing, because it gives us the opportunity, it puts the focus on time versus quality. So, and assumes that less time you have, less quality you're going to deliver. The idea of design ops starts from refusing this dichotomy. So instead of saying, like, you can work in a way that is fast and is high quality at the same time. How? Trying to reduce things, trying to reassemble stuff, trying to automate, in one side, the efforts necessary to create, let's say, a page, or I'm thinking about, I don't know, let's start from a very simple case, like building a landing page. So to create a landing page, a very high quality landing page, which is tested, which is solid, which is ready to show off, to be presented to users, we can actually reuse a lot of things. And if we're going to have a system that gives us the possibility, let's say, to assemble those things, let's say 80% reusing things, and 20% where actually the most important things are, where we should focus our time, you see that we have plenty of time. We are going to liberating a lot of time that we used to spend. So
we will actually get the results faster than the other way around.
I think, yeah.
It's really interesting also because it kind of flips around the idea of using pattern libraries or design systems just as a front-end tool, just to have a reference material for your components, towards something that is more used like on the other side by designers now to build, or design, and then eventually build products faster, right?
Yeah, also for exploration, definitely.
Right.
Yeah, and I think if I can add something that the idea of MVP is definitely important, and you can do it even if you don't have a product ready yet, because you can do it like in parallel while you're creating your partner library or your design system. You start to have some components, and the best way to know if that component works, if the idea that you have in mind is true, is to just put it in front of the user.
Okay, but then the question also is, so how do you organize the design process, right? Because who will own the design in the company? Basically, everybody owns the design, because if you build this set of patterns or components that other people in the company can reuse from the design infrastructure team, ultimately, who would make the final call what design will be chosen? Or is it going to be kind of decided or driven by the experiments you run in the feedback loops?
Yeah, I think that the main idea is that you're going to have some data about that. So when you have some decision that looks pretty obvious from the data, probably you have to go in that direction.
Right.
So you have some influences from the feedback loop and from the data, but also we have the design infrastructure team, right?
Right.
And in some cases, in some organization, the team can become like the team who detect the design power. However, we should not go in the other spectrum, right? Where the design infrastructure team became the design police and say like, nope,
Exactly,
that's
because
not good.
Yes, because, well, if you're working like just reusing those components, you can reuse them in many different unpredictable ways, ending up creating something inconsistent. And then if the design, like infrastructure police comes in and calls the shots, that might create tension, right?
Yes, but it's a very creative tension, because at that point, if you have a pattern that works, you have actually a good argument to say, okay, this thing is going to be necessary for this point. So it's going to be something that works, and we're going to keep it. The thing, also another point that probably we forgot during the
Presentation.
talk, the presentation, is the fact that those relationship works in a pool way. So we are not going to send things and send something out and say, you should use those components. You can use those components. You can use those things that, an hypothetical design infrastructure team is providing you. But you could use another library, you could use somewhere else. To answer your question, I would say who owns the ultimate decision is who is closer to the user. The people, I will assume that is a group of people and not a single individual that is more closer to what's going on the other side. So I said before, it's very important to establish this knowledge that leads to the relationship between the creators on one side and the users on the other side.
But it also creates some kind of tension, because sometimes, should you always trust data?
No, of course.
I mean, if you get, obviously the same goes for A/B tests or for any kind of measurements that we do, right? There's always this kind of nice balance you need to find between, I know what users need, I know what users want, I'm going to design it this way because I feel this is right. Or we're going to continue monitoring, we're going to continue experimenting, we're going to measure, and then we're going to adjust based on users' feedback. So how do you find this balance? So should you go, just follow your vision strictly, kind of maybe not eliminating, obviously, but limiting these feedback loops, or kind of embracing feedback loops and having them more authority over your decisions?
Yeah, I think that really, as we said before, we don't have a secret recipe, right? So we don't know all the answer. What I believe is that what we can do is taking the data in consideration, but also having the strategy in mind. It should be, the sort of, you're talking a lot about tension, and I really think that tension is the right word, but tension doesn't have to have a negative meaning, right? It can also be a positive tension. And once you have some data that you don't not trust, you still have your user research team, so you can do and test this time in a lab for get more validation. So instead of just quantitative, also qualitative data. But what I think is changed is that instead of taking your assumption before, you're starting making assumption later. So you're actually using the delivery, which is usually the last part in this linear process, as the first point, so as an input to the design.
Yeah, that's interesting. And also fixing this gap you have between designing and then stopping designing and moving on in the production line.
Yeah.
That's something that's really needs fixing. This is why we have a lot of many conversations about how do we breach the gap between Sketch and React, or Sketch and HTML, whatever. Because there is always this handoff, whether we want to admit it or not.
Yeah.
Right? We have a couple of questions here. One of them that keeps coming up here. How do you convince your organization to give this a try? If it's a big organization.
Okay. This is something that...
Because you're doing it all the time,
of course,
right?
yes, exactly. I've been there, where normally people are unsuccessful. So the one thing that I can definitely report is that most of the cases where I'm working together with teams to develop a better process start from the fact that they have very miserable results. So if they start measuring success the way they are actually providing value to users and start creating a sort of bridges, like, for example, the classic one is Net Promoter Score. Net Promoter Score is very low for many. And they will say, oh, how can we fix it? Well, the first thing is actually going through approximation. So try to produce something new and don't invest too much. Because if you're going to be wrong, well, the thing here, the business should be solid enough to keep running. That's the first thing. And normally, we start this conversation saying, okay, we don't know how to fulfill the user needs. We can go, I mean, normally if we're when I'm observing data coming from experiment, I would say that 20% of time is a big success. It's a great result. We are actually moving in the right direction. Another 20% of time, it's really bad. We should revert to the previous version. And in between, we have the 60% where nothing is happening, right? We don't have any significant data, any significant thing that can give us the opportunity to steer. The fact is starting from fear, right? From the thing that we don't know what's happening on the other side, and trying to get closer, we try and we learn. But in order for doing that, it's not that easy as it seems. We need to create an environment that makes those things possible. And that's why we're putting a lot of focus on creating the infrastructure that makes those things possible.
And I really think that one first step for convince your boss is really taking him and the rest of the stakeholder, if it's possible for you, or like the highest person that you can grab and start map the process right now and see
the waste.
Yeah, the waste, where you sort of like these functions. So that could be a first way to start saying, you know, like here there is something that we can maybe improve. How? And you heard the talk, so you know how.
Right. Okay. And just one more question that actually just came in now. In terms of the feedback loops, how would you design a feedback loop? Just to make it a bit, maybe you can give a practical example of what it would look like.
Of course. I mean, it could be something very simple. It could be like, I don't know if many of you spotted those things, like sometimes for example, in Amazon, they are using massively, like widgets that say, was this page, was this information useful for you? Thumbs up, thumbs down. That's already an interaction. That's already a feedback, right? This is something that could start to provide data. I could tell you a story. Once I've been involved in a project where we designed a new service for a large car marketplace in Germany. And one of the steps that we said, okay, we are going to make this, but how can we be sure that we are going to provide all the information, all the things that people are looking for when they are using the service? And we set up a small feature, small feedback form that says like, I don't know, how was the service from 1 to 5? And then help us to improve the service. Tell us what was wrong or what you liked. And I mean, I was really skeptical. I said, okay, let's try.
Who is going to feel it?
Yeah, who is going to feel that? Just, you know, people that says, like, I'm really pissed off. But okay. But yeah, I was really, really skeptical at the beginning. But then people start writing us, start sending us a lot of messages like, oh, you know what, I don't know, GPS, well, this feature is missing. Or I cannot find on the catalog the exact model of the car, the exact model of the engine, the setup that I have. And those was really, really interesting stuff. And we said, oh, wow, yeah, we forgot that. Good one. Or, I mean, yeah, we don't want to do this. We need to be more clear why we are not providing this information. And even having those very simple stuff can actually give us the possibility to observe what's happening on the other side.
Okay. Well, excellent. I'm looking forward to see. Maybe we should write a book about it sometime. That would be interesting.
No.
Okay, we'll talk about that.
No.
So, thank you so much. It's been very interesting, intriguing. So, I'm looking forward to have conversations tonight.
Of course.
And also, hopefully, you'll be outside. If some of you have questions that you'd like to address something specific, please go ahead. So, please give a warm hand. Thank you so much to Emanuela and Matteo.